And welcome to today's session on AI. My name is Jeff Ernst. I'm co-founder and CEO of Slap5. And I have to say that a lot of you, most of you on this call know me, and you know that I don't get overly excited about things unless I really do think they're life-changing. And I'm just going to ask if people could go on mute. And AI is one of those things that I believe is life-changing, and we're going to get into why. But what I really want to do on this session today is demystify it, get below the hype, because there's never been a technology that's had this much hype. And so I want to kind of get through that, and let's make it real and show you some real valid use cases for customer marketing and customer advocacy, because AI just has so much power. There's so much potential for AI just to totally transform how we work, how we operate, to automate the things that we do the most, the manual tasks, as well as just to better engage our customers. So with that, let me just get started here. And first thing I wanted to do is just talk a little bit about my journey with AI. And even before I do that, though, let me just ask, and I know we have a large crowd here today, probably too much for people to come off mute, but if you could just put into the chat something about your experience with AI. What have you been doing with AI so far? In terms of things like, have you been using ChatGPT to generate content for you, or to do research, or if anybody has done agentic workflows, or if you've done uh, RAG, just type RAG into and those of you that have done it will know what I mean. Okay, case study drafts, docs, asking questions, create content creation, lots of content, lots of research. All right. No, Mary, you'll find out what RAG is. Mid-ChatGPT. Oh, made ChatGPTs. Wow, I love that. Jen, you're a rock star. Content creation, Copilot for summaries. Okay, so you guys are doing a lot of the great stuff, and there is, I mean, there's so much more to do, and I expect that what I'm going to show you today will perhaps blow your mind in terms of what's capable, because it blows my mind every day. I mean, if you talk to my wife, she'll tell you Jeff's in there building another agent, and he never thought he could do it, but he did it in 10 minutes because AI helped him do it. I'm like, and I'm just in awe of this. And so again, let me just talk about my journey through AI. And those of you that might know, well, one of the things I just want to say is that we were fortunate enough to the use and build and launch our company on the Google platform. One of the smart decisions that Sean, our CTO, made early on. But Google has been one of the leaders in the development of AI over time, starting with BERT in 2018. But BERT, first, kind of language model, but not really usable by people. That didn't happen until Lambda came along in 2021. And that's when I first really started getting interested and started playing around and seeing what you can build, because that was really the first conversational AI, and you could create conversational bots. And so played around with Lambda and made some conversational bots and things like that. Interesting proofs of concept. But the world really changed in 2022 November. Those of you probably remember where you were when you first heard about ChatGPT. But that democratized it and put AI into the hands of anybody. And so I fully embraced that, and like everybody else, started using it for just asking questions and generating content and outlines and things like that. But shortly after that, when their API came out, I built the first Slap5 case study bot. So I generated a case study bot, and I'm going to give credit to my good friend Gordana, who's on this call, who has influenced a lot of my thinking here around different storylines that you can generate with AI. And so we had 6 or 7 different storylines, and that's now evolved into a full product that you're going to hear a lot more about in just a minute. And so ChatGPT was a game changer. Honestly, Google had to play catch up after ChatGPT came out. So Bard came out in 2023, and that's when I really started using Bard. And then Bard in December 2023 rebranded themselves as Gemini. And so a lot of what I'm going to show you today is built on Gemini. both through agentic workflows as well as generative AI. Okay, so hopefully you guys have had an interesting journey of yourselves, and this is my river. If anybody's ever created a river, this is I asked ChatGPT to describe my experience with AI as a river, and this is what it generated. All right, so let's just jump in. Here's what we're going to be talking about today. I want to make it a little, define some terms for you, and ChatGPT defined some of these terms, as did Gemini, but I'm also then going to translate what each of these means for customer marketing and customer advocacy people. So the first area we're going to start with is AI agents. And I've actually have implemented two types of agents that I'm calling in my language discovery agents and generative agents. But just think about agents as they do something for you. Okay. But then AI agents is almost like table stakes now, because there's hundreds or thousands of vendors that have AI agents and probably hundreds addressing just customer marketers alone. And so the next generation is agentic workflows. And so I'm really excited about this. I'm going to show you a couple of great examples of agentic workflows. But then what I really want to do is get into retrieval-augmented generation. This is really going to blow your mind with what's possible when you now combine like discovery agents and generative agents, either in agentic workflows or retrieval-augmented generation. So that's a lot of words thrown at you. Let's now just jump in and see and start to define them. We're going to start with AI agents. And if I could just get somebody, if you could just do a thumbs up just to make sure you guys can still hear me. I am always paranoid about talking for 10 minutes and nobody can hear me. Thank you. All right, so I asked ChatGPT, just give me a pretty picture to describe what an AI agent is. And this is what it did. This is the technical description, right? It's an autonomous system that perceives its environment, it reasons about the environment, it makes decisions, and it acts towards achieving specific goals, and then it learns and adapts over time. Okay, so that's an AI agent. That's the boring description. My description is I'm going to break it down into discovery agents and then generative agents. But what I've gotten so excited about is building a whole bunch of discovery agents, because I've never been one person who wants to just use a technology for technology's sake, technology in search of an application. I've always been the other way around. Is I believe let's start with the real problem that we have and then figure out how that technology can solve it. And so if you think about one of the big problems we all have is we're all trying to find more advocates. We're trying to turn over every rock in our company to find more advocates wherever they may be hiding, or also to discover more content wherever it might be generating or hiding or spoken or whatever it may be. So let's just start up here at 11 o'clock. So we've built discovery agents for things like call recordings, whether it's Outreach, Gong, Zoom. Take that call recording, apply AI over it, determine sentiment, use that as a trigger perhaps to now either create a piece of content or maybe bring that customer into a campaign now where you're a recruiting campaign for new advocates so you can start to engage them. And I know a lot of you are doing that. You mentioned that you're doing call recordings and things like that. But this is an entry level thing that's totally baked today, not leading edge at all, but something that's super fun and valuable, especially those customer success weekly check-ins calls, a great source of new advocates and new content. And I'm going to show you some scenarios with those in just a minute, but I just want to talk about some of the other agents first. Now think about LinkedIn posts. How many people are monitoring LinkedIn for mentions of their brand and then taking an action on that, either to see if they're a customer or not, and if they are, maybe recruit them into your advocacy program, or if not, maybe your social team engages them, and of course, determining sentiment before you do it. So another great source of discovery. And so again, as we're continuing to discover and look for sources of new customers and to join our advocacy programs, LinkedIn profiles is another great one. And so we have an agent called the Job Change Tracker, which listens for job changes and promotions and brings them to your attention. You're going to see how that play out in a workflow in a few minutes. Sorry, I'm going to admit a few more people here. Customer support tickets is another great source of what you might want to be doing to find what's going on. Not as interesting as customer communities, though, because you think about what your customers are posting in communities and the events they're attending and things like that. what a great source of finding customers who may have said something in a post that gives you a signal that they might be a candidate for your program, or maybe they just mentioned a great use case for your technology in a post, and you want to turn that into content. Customer success platforms are great for uncovering activity that's happening in there, or health scores. Similarly, there's other customer surveys and customer NPS tools out there. But what if you could tap into customers that are giving you a 9 or 10 on their Net Promoter Score survey, and either offer them an opportunity to perform an active advocacy, invite them to your advocacy landing page where they can pick and choose the types of activities they like to do, or even turn their specific answer that they've given in a survey response into a text-based story. And then email accounts and folders and threads. Think about the rich history that exists in your email, and imagine tapping into that, both looking for signals as well as when we get into RAG, Retrieval-Augmented Generation, you're going to hear how you can tap into your email history to augment some stories that are already going on. So those are some just great examples of discovery agents. I'm not going to show you too much right now because I'm going to wait until I get into some of the agentic workflows that begin with discovery agents. So you're going to see in a minute some specific examples of each of these in action. But before I do that, let me then also just go on and talk a bit about generative agents, because this is another thing. So think about generative agents. Another person in, is that you guys are all using generative AI. It seems like I saw a lot of content creation examples that you people were posting in there, and so now imagine that you can feed your AI engine from any source, whether it's content that you've already captured from customers, maybe it's customer interviews, transcripts, maybe it's the video recordings, it could be summaries, as well as it could be the engagement history, the request fulfillment history, and revenue influence history coming from your customer advocacy platform. But all those are great inputs into the generative agents, where the output of those can be long form customer stories, text format, written format, video format, audio format. AI is famous. You guys are probably already doing this as well. You're generating also short form content, maybe for social posts, for blogs, for emails. And it's also a great way to assess your most effective or most influential, customers based on all of that history. And so to make this real, let me just going to show you an example of where I've gone with Case Study Bot, which I developed back in 2022. And I'm bringing you over a real screen. Let's see if I can make sure you can see this. Okay, and so imagine now, instead of just writing the challenge solution result case study that we've all been doing for 100 plus years, what if instead we could generate customer stories in specific storylines that serve specific purposes in your sales and marketing funnel, and also influence your buyers. And when I say buyers, I mean net new logo buyers, as well as existing customers when they're got a buying hat on, deciding whether to renew or whether to buy more from you. So, I mean, I believe that the days of the challenge solution result case study are numbered now, especially with AI, because you can now take the same input and generate hundreds of stories from that same input, but each with a different storyline that can be used by your sales reps, used by your marketing team. Just to give you a couple, some of the storylines we have out of the box here is customer as a hero. So this is a way of telling the customer story in a way that makes them really look like the hero. So buyers feel emotionally connected to your brand. They feel envy. They start to imagine themselves being really successful. I love the competitive replacement storyline here, which is basically helping buyers rationalize switching to your solution, especially if you're in a hyper competitive market where anybody that's going to buy from you has to be migrating from a legacy platform. Industry prowess. I mean, so many of you need to show your understanding of what's going on and your expertise in an industry to make customers feel like their challenges. And then what I can do with each of these, I can click on it and you can see, okay, here's the basic storyline here, right? For competitive replacement, we were in a world of hurt with vendor X. The breaking point was when this happened. We realized we couldn't live another day with vendor X. So we selected vendor A, which is us, right? Because, and here's the reasons why, and here's what the migration was like going from X to A. It was seamless. It was, all the things we worried about never happened. But here's some of the things we didn't expect as well. But then, especially now, here's what we can do better. Here's how life is better after migrating to the new platform. So imagine that's a very different storyline than one that might be, and I'll go through some of these others here. You see, we've got objection crushers, one that focuses on a particular strategic initiative or a particular use case. But I know a lot of you, especially a lot of my clients who are in this call, I know a lot of you, part of your top go-to-market strategies for the year are to really showcase the different use cases of your technology platforms because there are so many. And you might have general purpose platforms that could be used to do a lot of different things. So that's why it's awesome to be able to generate use case. Yeah, I'm showing global expansion or start small, grow fast type relationships is a great storyline. Quick win to show that you have a competitive advantage about time to value. Everybody wants to know it's going to be rapid time to value. And then I won't bore you with all of them, but just call out a couple of them. Thought leadership is one I really like because tap into customers in a way where they're reinforcing your thought leadership positions in the market that are making themselves look like heroes as well as making your company sound innovative. And then one other one I love is this innovation partner. And so showcase the fact that your customer is really relying on you as being a forward-thinking, visionary partner for them, so that you can attract more buyers who are seeking a trusted advisor, not just a vendor. Okay, so this is a super powerful part of AI is capture once and generate stories, in different storylines, but then also different tones. You can train it on your brand identity, and then you can also do different formats. And one of the things that I suggest to people is that you should even using generative AI and generating them in these storylines, I generate them in the first person, not the third person, right? It's just as easy to generate them in the first person. So let the customer tell the story about how they became a hero in the first person voice. They're not telling it, but people want to hear that everything in the first person voice. But and this is if you can, even though that these might, if you're using generative AI, it's probably still doing text. But nevertheless, it's just given the choice. I always prefer, and buyers always prefer to hear a first-person account of their experiences. So I'm just going to move that aside, and I'm going to just go on to my next one here. Come on. Maybe I have to close this one. All right. Let me just stop sharing for a second. Figure out what's wrong here. All right. Don't you love it when things just freeze on you? Okay. Go to my windows here. I'm going to go over here. All right. I am now going to go back into play mode. And so low performance mode, that sounds like a good switch. All right. So we're back, and I'm going to share my screen again. Apologize for that little side job. All right. So now let's talk about generative agents. So again, text is the rage, and I predict that text-based stories will never go away, even though I'm a huge believer in audio and video. And all of the buyer interviews that I've done over the years at Forrester and at the Buyer Institute, and my friend Gordano I mentioned earlier, same thing. She has a lot of experience here too. We've overwhelmingly, buyers want to hear the tone of voice of the customer versus reading words that anybody could write, right? They want to hear the inflection. They want to hear the emotion. They want to hear the authenticity. They want to hear the pain. That's how they decide whether they judge something. That's why I'm such a huge proponent of AI and built Slap 5 to really optimize for audio and video content. But now think about generative agents that here's something very simple, and you're going to see this get more complicated in future scenarios. But imagine now you just conduct and record a customer interview on video. I love using Riverside.fm. It gives you high definition video recordings, so that's where I do my customer interviews. But then you use AI to automatically generate the snippets from each question answer response, and then automatically upload them into your customer content system and add them to the storyboard, and boom, you've now used AI to take something that would normally take about 2 hours of time and turned it into about 2 minutes. So that's another great example of a generative agent, but really generating video snippets, carving up existing video for the most part. Okay. And so again, I'm leaving plenty of time for questions at the end, but I want to jump in now and get into agentic workflows. And so agentic workflow, like I'm going to give you ChatGPT's definition. Here's the boring technical one. It's a structured sequence of tasks or operations in which the AI agents are planning, deciding, and executing actions. So think about actions as the key word there that are happening. And they're doing it across multiple steps, multiple tools, or multiple systems. And then they're also learning and adapting over time. So think about it as, and so here's my translation of that for customer marketing and customer advocacy people is take any automated workflow that you have today, and hopefully the systems you're using support this type of automated workflows where you can have triggering events in your system or any other system, and then it can have a series of actions that happen after that. We built this in Slap 5 in our workflow automation engine. And so, but now think about any of these actions can be an AI step applied to it. So you can transcribe a video or audio. You can determine sentiment of something that was fed into it. You can categorize or tag. Isn't it awesome when content comes in? You not only want the metadata around the customer it belongs to, but what products were mentioned in this case study, or what use cases were mentioned. So categorizing tagging is a great one. AI is awesome at synthesizing. So let's take a lot of different inputs and synthesize and find the meaning, find the real meaning. Summarizing, that's also a great way, easy use case, right? Is just to summarize. Let's say you've got a 2-minute video and you want to just get a 30-word summary because you don't want to have to go back and watch the video to remind yourself each time. Translation is another great one, and globalization is a great one. I can tell you, Gemini, and just looking at Shelley's thing about trouble from transcriptions, I can tell you Gemini does such an amazing job transcribing content as well as translating it into other languages. So think about how often you work for global companies get asked to, we don't have enough content in Italian. What are you going to do about that? Well, imagine if you could translate some of your English content into Italian and get nearly, fluent, like a fluent Italian speaker would say, this is amazing. It can prioritize and it can recommend, it can clarify. So these are all amazing things that can be part of agentic workflows. But to make this real, let's take a couple of examples. So now I'm going to start to show you how you can piece together discovery agents, generative agents within agentic workflows. So again, the agentic workflow is now adding another layer of sophistication in that it's allowing you to have these trigger-based workflows with a series of actions that happen that can have rules and conditions, and AI can be applied at any stage, and AI can determine what path this workflow takes or optimize and learn over time to make this path even more efficient. So imagine now, here we're going to go back to a call recording being the discovery agent, and let's say it's Gong, and it's a CSM weekly check-in call. And so during that CSM weekly check-in call that was recorded, a participant shared a value outcome, and the AI agent detected that. And so now what are we going to do? One, we're going to see if the participant is already in our advocacy system. And if no, let's assume no, we might look them up in Salesforce to get more details about them, and then add them to our advocacy system, and then add them to our advocate targets campaign, advocate targets from Gong campaign. Because a lot of what you can do now with campaigns in these systems is you can really start to have different track all your different sources. So if you're having discovery agents, you can dump all of them where you're discovering them into like one work list or one campaign, or you might break them out into separate campaigns. It's different people might be working them separately. But it basically becomes your work list to now engage those members that you've identified who weren't already in your program, but said something on that call. But let's say you want to take another path. And this is just one example, by the way, that one of my clients has done. There's lots of different examples. Anything you can think of, you can tweak and do these. But imagine now the participant is an advocate in your program already. Now you're going to extract the video snippet of that customer describing that value outcome from that call recording, create a story from it, summarize and categorize that story, and then add that. Maybe it was such a great story that you're now going to add that customer to your content production plan, project basically, so that you can go to them at a later date, or maybe go to them to say, hey, let's do a deeper study. Okay, so that's just using a discovery agent and generative agent in an agentic workflow. Now we're going to do something very similar, but at this time it's going to start with a customer interview. So let's say you've done a customer interview, it's been conducted in recording, and this is like an extension of that one I showed you earlier where we were creating video snippets. Now I'm turning it into a whole agentic workflow as opposed to just a 3-step thing. So we're going to have AI transcribe the interview, we're going to have AI summarize the interview, and then we're going to extract the snippets from it and put those into our system and create the storyboard out of it and summarize each snippet, so that because we have these reusable assets in our system now. But the other path we're going to take in parallel is we're going to generate the first draft of a customer story using the customer as a hero storyline. And then we're going to automate the sending of that draft. We might want to review it first, but if we add it to our campaign, we can review it. And then once we've reviewed it, we can automatically have it sent to our customer to review. And then when the customer has reviewed it and approved it, automatically publish the story. So think about the months-long process it takes today to publish a new case study. If you can now bring this down into minutes of actual work, but maybe 3 or 4 days of elapsed time. And then I'm going to keep going because there's a lot of these. I'm going to pick and choose because I'm just showing you lots of examples that my clients have done. But I just want to focus on the interesting one. What's this one? This is remote content capture. Oh yeah, I do like this one. So let's say it's a magic moment in the customer lifecycle. They've just celebrated an anniversary. They've just renewed with you. They've just attended an event. They've just gone live even, right? And so you should be automating these agentic workflows so that at those magic moments in your customer lifecycle, we also call this lifecycle advocacy or lifecycle marketing. But imagine now you send them a prompt to get their feedback because they shared a magic moment, and you have it sent from their trusted contact. And then and so the customer receives they receive the prompt, they record a little story on video, and then AI summarizes it. AI determines the assessment, it assesses the sentiment, and then tags and categorizes it from the summarization. And then if it's a positive sentiment, we're going to add it to our case study target campaign. But if it's negative, we're going to go notify our customer success manager for that customer that there was a negative feedback captured from remote content capture. Okay, really simple to set these types of things up. This is actually one of my favorites. Is Advocate Job Change Tracker. Every time I show this to people, they're like, "Oh my God, this is." There are some purpose-built systems out there that you can buy just for Advocate Job Change Tracking. But why do that when it can be something that do Advocate Job Change Tracking just as part of your regular advocate engagement, right? And so we all know that we all work in companies where our advocates turn over. They go to new companies. But what if we could turn you into a customer advocacy hero by allowing you to generate revenue for your company by job changers, or also to re-engage those advocates that have gone to new companies that might want to join your program again. So here's one example of how this could flow. I've done it probably 5 different ways for my customers. This is one way. One customer has done it so we do a periodic search of each advocate's LinkedIn profile. So maybe once a month, and we're retrieving their experience records. We're then comparing those experience records to the company profile URL and title that we last retrieved for that advocate. If it changed, then we're going to look up their new company name in Salesforce And we don't have to do an exact match. We can do a like match, or we can use AI to find in Salesforce what's most likely the matching company. Even if the exact name is different, the spelling is different, the capitalization is different, maybe it has Inc. or LLC or something like that. But here's where the magic happens, continues to happen. So let's say the new company is a current customer. Now we want to add them to the re-engage advocate campaign. And so that's your work list where it's going to prompt you now to reach out. We'll send you a notification. And now you want to communicate with that advocate to re-engage them in your program. And so what better advocate to bring back than somebody that's gone to a new company, they're already a customer, reach out. Hopefully you've already had a good relationship. Of course they're going to re-engage your program because most likely they're still working on your technology at the new company. But let's say that new company is not a customer. Salesforce told you that. So now what we're going to do is we can add them to the lead, the tracking campaign, the job change tracking campaign as a lead. But then we're also going to automatically create a lead record in Salesforce. Then that lead record in Salesforce goes through lead routing, lead assignment. It gets followed up by a BDR, SDR, or AE or somebody in sales. And then let's say that lead gets converted to an opportunity. Now what we want to do is log the revenue influence of a job changer is what created this lead. And so now that you as a customer marketer get influence credit on this particular opportunity when it gets closed won. Okay, so so it all originated from being re-engaging that advocate in your program. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, then after it's closed won, then you're obviously you're going to go out and re-engage them in your advocate program. That's what that last box really means. In addition to giving you credit, you know, you built the relationship once. Make it easy to bring them right back in. Okay, people are still joining here. Um, so let me see, LinkedIn. Some of these are going to show a lot of common elements here. I'll just point out in this one what's a little bit different. But let's say in LinkedIn, we've got another client that really wants to monitor LinkedIn for posts that mention their brand because their brand is pretty well known. They sell it to sales leaders. And so there's a lot of chatter out there about it. And so, but here's what we're doing. We're every week, we're bringing back those LinkedIn posts that mention their brand. And we're using AI to make sure it's a brand mention because their word is a common noun, their brand name. And so we want to make sure it's not just bringing somebody mentioning that object, but they're actually mentioning the company or its products. So we're making sure that it is actually a brand mention. We're assessing the sentiment, creating a summary, and extracting the quote that was said in the post. And then similarly to what we just did, we're looking up in Salesforce to see if the poster is a customer. If it's a positive sentiment and a customer, we can see if they're already an advocate and then continue to branch based on whether these rules are not, another way to add people to our advocacy program. That's why this company originally wanted to do this, is because they wanted to find advocates in LinkedIn posts. But then let's say it's, if it's positive sentiment on LinkedIn and not a customer, we might as well handle those as well. So let's create the Salesforce lead and follow through like we just did with the job change tracker. Okay, so another super powerful way of tapping into sources and uncovering signals wherever they are, including on social media. And then just for fun, I want to show you this one. This is what a client asked me for back in March for March Madness. And so they came to me saying, Jeff, it's really cool, the stuff you're doing, but I had this crazy idea, or my CMO wants to do this, and I told him it's impossible. But what you've told me thinks that maybe this is possible. So they said, we want to run an NCAA March Madness tournament, fun and game thing with our customers, our engaged advocates, and we want to get them, we want to have them represent their school and put them in a bracket, and then give a prize to the alumni who's goes the furthest in the bracket. But they had no idea what college they went to. So here's what we did. We quickly just built an AI agentic workflow. It said for each advocate, we're going to find out where they went to college. And believe me, AI is way better at searching LinkedIn profiles than LinkedIn's own API is. Okay, so we use AI to do this. And so the agent went out. Actually, let me back up a step. Here's what thing we had to do first. We used AI to say, go get me the universities that are in the tournament and disambiguate them to make sure these are actually those real there were 68 if you count the play-in teams for the first round of 64. So we got the 68. We then went out and found out where each one went to college, and then we were able to also look up on LinkedIn, make sure it's the same company, see if they're in the tournament, compare them to that other list that we grabbed, and then we added them to a campaign, and then they were able to now engage these customers that were that it was a subset. Ironically, of all the customers that were in the system, it was only about 20% actually went to a college that was in the tournament. So it was a very focused group, but it was still about 25 customers that they were able to engage in this March Madness tournament activity. And it's a great way to drive more, especially if you're doing this in conjunction with your customer community platform, which is what we were doing. It's a great way to drive more engagement in that community. Okay, and so now I'm going to go to one that I didn't see anybody post, that you're doing RAG, and I'm not surprised, because RAG is the holy grail of what you can do for customer marketing, customer advocacy. I've been embracing this for a while now because I've always thought that this is the most exciting part of, but it's building on agentic workflows, and it's called Retrieval-Augmented Generation. It can incorporate the other types of AI agents just like Agentic Workflows do. But let me first give you ChatGPT's definition of Retrieval-Augmented Generation. And I guarantee you, you're going to be hearing this term used a lot more throughout the rest of this year and into next year. So an AI framework that enhances the quality and accuracy of generated output by first retrieving relevant external information from one or more knowledge sources, and then generating a response based on both the retrieved information and your original prompt. So put in other words, you're going to prompt the system. It's going to go out there and grab all kinds of other information, and then it's going to come back and wow you with what it produces. Everything, not just what you gave it as input or your prompt or your source information, but what else it was able to retrieve. That's why it's Retrieval-Augmented Generation. This is really the future for AI, for customer marketing and customer advocacy. So let me give you some examples here. And so this is now using email inboxes. So a discovery agent plus generative agent in a RAG, Retrieval-Augmented Generation. So let's say there's so much solid gold in our email inboxes, or in our folder, a certain folder, or a certain thread. And so we connect our email account. And this could also be triggered by any other discovery agent. It could be that this whole process started because something was gleaned from a signal from a call recording in Gainsight or Gong or something like that. So let's think about anything that could trigger it. But now what we're going to do is the RAG is now going to go through, because you've granted it access to your email account, or either maybe just a specific folder or a specific thread. It's going to discover positive statements, summarize those, identify the participant. From that, it's going to look up in Salesforce to see if the participant is a customer, and go through some similar processes here like we did before, based on what the sentiment is and based on whether they're a customer or a prospect, and take those different actions, but also allow you to get revenue influence. And so that one is just a slight extension over the agentic workflow. But now let me show you something that I'm really geeking out over. There's two more here that I just love. And so this one, imagine now that you've had a discovery agent has, for whatever reason, added a customer to your content creation pipeline. Let's say it was from a call recording, it was from LinkedIn, it was from something else, it was from a referral even. But that's now triggered, and you've decided now you want those triggers to send somebody to your content creation pipeline. But now, once they're in the content creation pipeline, you want to use RAG now to gather everything you know about this customer. So RAG goes on, and then the first step says, go get all the call recordings for this customer, not just that one that triggered it, but all 40 that we've had with that customer over the last 2 years. Get all those recordings and process them and apply AI to them. Now let's also get the CSAT and NPS history from our customer success platform. That's another RAG step. And then maybe we want to get all the content that's been contributed by this customer or all of the acts of advocacy, their activity history from your advocacy system like Slap5. Okay, and then we want to get all the emails that we've had from this customer, and then we want to get all the posts by this customer from the community. And so we community is another great source. Let's see all the things that they've posted. And then let's take that and then we generate a customer story with a selected storyline. And so we're still generating it, but it's been augmented by all of these additional sources. And then we could send a draft to the customer for review and approval, or we could proofread it first to make sure there's, that there's nothing confidential or anything that's going to, anything that's like PII or anything like that can all be automatically applied during this workflow. Okay, and so that's possible. I mean, really powerful use case. I see Shelley. I'm going to come back to data privacy concerns in just a minute. Trust me. The retrieval. Here's another example of, and I have to give credit to Christina Garnett. She's the one, when she heard what I was doing with RAG, she said, Jeff, you should do a predictive advocacy scoring model. And we worked together to define one. Those of you that know Christina, super mind out there in customer community and customer experience. And so here's what we're doing. So for each target advocate that we have in our system, we're now going to get their usage data from Pendo and then give them a usage score. We're then going to get their CSAT and NPS data from their CS platform and give them a CSAT score or NPS score, which could be the actual score, by the way, or it could be our rubric. We're going to get their account firmographics from Salesforce, and then we're going to give them a score based on things like how long they've been a customer and things like that. Then we're going to get all their support tickets from Zendesk and see how, whether there's anything urgent or something right now, or has there been a history of kind of risky tickets that have been submitted by that customer. So then we can give them that score. And then we're going to get event attendance information from this customer, from the customer community where we do our events. And then we're going to give them a score based on that. And then we're going to update them in the scoring model for our predictive advocacy scoring, give them a summarized score where we can then see each of the subscores for them. Okay, so again, super exciting. What I'm going to do now is I just want to show you what a couple of these look like, because I'm going to just show you. So if you're doing this type of scoring, it's awesome if you can then take action on them. And so I'm showing you now. I'm just jumping back a little bit to the advocate job change tracker use case that I told you about 4 or 5 minutes ago. And then I'm going to just sort this one based on job change. And so now, like, here's what we do. We practice what we preach with advocate job change trackers. So whenever one of our advocates changes jobs, we have that workflow running. They get added to this campaign, and then we can see what their follow-up status is, whether they've been contacted, opportunity created, are they interested, closed won even. So, I mean, this is one of our best sources of new customers, is when our champion goes to another company and then they bring us in. So you can see we got a lot of closed ones. And so we can show their new LinkedIn title. We can show their new LinkedIn company. We show their prior company. We can even we bring their LinkedIn URL, profile URL. So I can click that, open that up in a new window if I want to. Boom, if I want to be able to see that. And then let me see the opportunity that was created in Salesforce, or in this case, since we use HubSpot, I'm just going to click here, and now it's going to bring up this deal record in HubSpot. And so now I can, right from there, I can see, how is this particular, projecting, progressing, I should say. Okay. And so same thing. I mean, different campaigns. Do I have one? I do value realization. So now let's say this is another great campaign for when we want to be tracking when somebody has spoken something on one of our discovery agents where they've talked about some value that's been experienced. We can now add them to our value realization tracker and then decide how do we want to process them now once that has all happened. Okay, so with that, I am going to minimize this and go back here. And all right, so that's really what I wanted to show. And I know I had a few of my own competitors on this call today, so I wasn't able to go too far under the covers, but I am willing to answer questions that you have. I want to just put it out there. You know that I am such a geek. A lot of you that know me well know that I was also a Forrester analyst where I thrived on doing 30-minute inquiry sessions, and I continue to do that as being somebody that, I feel like I have a lot to offer to people that are looking not only to just learn more about AI, but just to up their game in customer marketing and customer advocacy. So if you want to, feel free to reach out to me at jeff@slap5.com if you want to brainstorm your ideas for using AI. If you want to learn about other use cases, you want to build a business case for doing more in your company, or overcome security concerns. And let me just address the security concerns head on, because I think it was Shelley, you had said something about what about data privacy concerns? Yeah, and so then you can actually there's a couple things you can do. One is make sure the number one security concern or privacy concern that I get from my clients and new prospects is we not want our customer data training the large language models. So now other people are seeing our customer data when they are now prompting. And so I can show you, Sean, our CTO, has put together this brilliant hierarchy of language models, basically, so that there's Gemini, which is the super uber trained model on everything we can do. But anything that you prompt or feed it goes into an instance specific language model. That's what actually gets trained. And then there's a third language model, which is for SLAP 5 anyway, which is SLAP 5 wide, which is where we've trained it how to do things like what those different storylines are. We've given it examples of lots of different customer stories written in each storyline. And so it's a way to make it such that you can overcome the security concerns, because every security evaluation now, anytime you're buying new technology, not only is your SecOps team going to be involved, but your data privacy team is going to want to evaluate the AI capabilities and make sure that it's, not, most importantly, not using any data that you feed it to train the generic large language models. Okay. All right, so let me open it up for questions now. I mean, if anybody does want to come off mute, if you're brave enough, you could. I will just start going backwards. I'm seeing, because I've been following as I've been talking. So I'm going to take Sharon. I'm going to let me read it. This all sounds amazing, and I see how this would be such bigger than me, and also integrated into our system. Begin a question: how do you initiate these automatic agentic workflows in a company to start with? Well, and so you find out, which of your systems that you use today have the ability to support agentic workflows. If not, look for one that does. I mean, this is part and parcel to what we built into SLAP 5, because we saw AI coming, from the founding of the company in 2016. But so what you want to be doing is, think about the workflows that you have today, or whatever systems where you're building workflows, even if it's things like Gainsight, if you use Gainsight Community, or if you use Gainsight Customer Success Platform, it's got the ability to trigger activities that you could be listening for other systems, or building automated workflows. So check, if your customer marketing or customer advocacy platform doesn't support it, also look at the other technologies in your technology stack to see what they can do. The beauty about this, though, is that anything is possible. And so what I found with my customers, having been building these things for over a year now, is that it's only limited by your imagination, what you can build, because technically anything is possible. And so that's a double-edged sword, because it also makes it such that uh, once you can do anything, then your mind just starts expanding to saying, can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do that? And so the trickiest part I found for customer marketers and customer advocacy professionals to wrap their heads around is how to translate this sort of 60,000 foot grand idea. Like, wouldn't it be good if a net promoter score of comes in, it's a 9 or 10, and I want to get them to write a peer review and then this or that, to then actually take it to the 30,000 foot level and start to design what is that ideal customer experience? What are the steps that have to happen? And what are the applications that get involved? And so as you can see,
Mm,
most of these workflows had, they can have 4, 5, or 6 different applications in a single agentic workflow that are involved.
right.
Okay.
Thank you.
So let me just go back. This has got the thank you, Robert. Add to the prompt only include exact quotes from the specific transcript. Otherwise, it makes things up. Yes, I assume that's talking about hallucinations that Lauren wrote. Let me go back up, see if Shelley said anything. Yeah. So again, AI is not perfect, and so the advice I would give you when you're thinking about generative AI for writing new text, even with these new storylines, think about it as a powerful way of generating that first draft or second draft, and then continuing to use the interface to refine it. And maybe you want the tone to be a little more casual, a little more playful, or whatever, but use it to get to where you want. But then it should still have the eye of an editor, right? That should go through, because there can be hallucinations, there can be inaccuracies. OpenAI will tell you that. It's right on the bottom of the ChatGPT screen. ChatGPT makes mistakes, right? And so again, hallucinations are the things where it makes things up, and that's my layman's definition of it. And so you want to be careful of that. And especially it's worth reviewing something before you send it to a customer to review, just to make sure that it didn't totally hallucinate something, or it didn't combine something that this customer did with something that another customer did, assuming that you're using a system that allows you to train on all of your customers' information, train a dedicated language model. So that's one thing that I would recommend, is that it's never gonna, you should never be using it for doing final content. But then also, it's a whole nother reason why I love audio and video, because you can't hallucinate a video, right? If you carve out a video snippet in the exact words, and it doesn't have to be a contiguous snippet, right? It can be a 30-minute customer interview where 5 minutes in, they started answering a question here, and then 22 minutes in, they gave a little more insight that answers that question. And you use AI. AI knows to put those together, because combined, that's the best answer to this question, right? But that's still in the customer's own voice. There's no hallucination there. And when you generate customers in the true, content in the true customer voice and send it back to them to review, they can't come back to you and say, I didn't say that. I mean, that happens all the time when I do case studies for my vendors. They put words in my mouth, and sometimes I don't like it. So I so much prefer, go to the horse's mouth and use the actual words I said on video or on audio. Okay, so let me trouble with AI to making things up from a trailer. Yes, okay, Shelley, you talked about hallucination without using that word, but yes, you have to worry about it making stuff up. I think I talked about that. Insights from Salesforce CRM. Absolutely. Think about Salesforce CRM in a RAG. So many of my automations augment Salesforce. I'll give you another one that came up on a call thing. Um, Imagine this scenario. I didn't have time to put it into a slide, but how many? I mean, a lot of you are doing reactive reference request fulfillment, but wouldn't it be great if you could do proactive reference recommendations, because you know that an opportunity has hit a certain stage and the rep is too lazy to go request a reference or look for references or look for content. But imagine if you used AI to say, every time a opportunity hits this particular stage and meets these certain conditions, and come back and look and retrieve the information about the opportunity, the deal size, the amount, the tier, get the products being evaluated, get the region and company size from the opportunities account record, and then use that and run AI over all of your content library to retrieve and recommend content that you then or even reference customers if you want to do it, but recommend it to the sales reps who might not realize that there's even a reference program. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I go into a company when I'm talking to prospects for Slap 5, and their sales reps didn't even know they had a reference program, but they got a reference automation system in place. Like, go figure. So So, because they may have missed that day of training, or they may have just been sleeping. So imagine if you could now shift to be a more proactive, uh, you're proactively providing references, not waiting for the request to come in. And that reference could be people, it could be content. Okay, insights from CM, content research. Okay, I think I'm back to people answering my question at the beginning. Any other questions? Okay, Gordana, how do you create multiple storylines from the same customer interview? Does the AI fill in information gaps? Great question, Gordana. I know you know the answer because you are the authority in this space. So here's the thing that I say. The storylines, again, if you design your interview guide correctly, and I always recommend to people, if you want to do a deep dive and generate an awesome piece of content and not just be opportunistically waiting for content to be surfacing on gong calls or things like that. Yeah, that's table stakes. I call that opportunistic. You way of capturing content. But if you really want to be proactive and generate something truly meaningful that's going to address the needs of your buyers, that's going to crush their questions, fears, and doubts, there's nothing that beats doing an actual 30-minute interview of your customer. And then, but also you need to prepare and make sure that that interview guide is covering all the bases. In a 30-minute interview, you can generally ask 12 to 15 questions. So you want to make sure you ask about who they were using before and what the shortcomings were and why they selected you, and all those normal questions, as well as any specific to your market or specific to your company or your solution. Because if you have all those building blocks, then you're going to have the building blocks for each of the different storylines. And so the storylines, again, they tell a story with a very different plot, a very different way of telling the story, but they're drawing on all of the same inputs. And so again, it all comes down to making sure that you are getting the right, that you're asking the right questions in the first place, or you're augmenting it by seeing what else people have said. Let's say there was something you didn't ask. So what anybody else, any other questions? Shelley, what is the tool that surfaces that to us? Not sure exactly what you're mentioning there, but the tool that surfaces insights or customer voice. Oh, let me just mention, we're probably going to be shut down because we've just hit our hour mark. Again, I just want to, if anybody does have a question that they didn't want to post in the stream, hit me up directly, jeff@slap5.com. Happy to answer. Um, and what else can I just say? Oh, yeah, and the other thing I just wanted to mention too is that there's so many tools out there. Really think through. You don't want to be using a dead end tool. If you think about it, there's a lot of AI tools that you've heard about. People are trying to sell to you today that might discover advocates or generate content, but it's a dead end. It's living in its own silo. What you can't do with those systems is the agentic workflows in the RAG, because that's why you need it built into your customer marketing and customer advocacy system, because that's where your activity history is happening. That's where your work plans are. That's where your recruiting campaigns are. That's where everything else is. And then they also need to be integrating into other systems. Like you said, all the checking in Salesforce to see if they're a customer or not, checking into LinkedIn to see what they've posted. So even though there's hundreds of systems out there where you could be generating content or identifying potential advocates, to think about what's going to happen once they're identified. What are those additional automations and workflows that you want to happen from that point on? Okay. So with that, I'm going to end. It's 1:02, and we haven't been kicked off. But thank you, everybody, for joining. Like I said, if you have any follow-up questions, reach out to me. Or if you have any brilliant ideas and you want to challenge me to say, Jeff, I bet this can't be done, feel free to do that, and I'll see if it can be done. I always love challenges like that. All right. So thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.